Yo, what's good, y'all? Now, before we get to the video, I gotta address the elephant in the room. I no longer have dreads. You know, it was something I was wanting to do for a while, but I never could pull myself to actually do it. So instead of cutting off all my hair, what we actually did was comb through each dread, which took a crazy amount of time, but it made the transition easier. But look, that's beside the point of the video. Today what we're gonna be taking a look at is how to easily get the film look with the plugin called Dehancer. If you edit on Mac like me, this plugin is only available on DaVinci Resolve, but they just dropped the beta for Final Cut. So it's not yet available for Premiere Pro on Mac, but they are working on it. If you're on Windows, then it's available for DaVinci as well as Premiere Pro. I normally edit in Premiere Pro, but we're gonna be using DaVinci for this video. I'm super new to DaVinci, so keep that in mind, but we'll be able to add in the Dehancer plugin and see the effects. So we're here in DaVinci and I just have a single clip that I'm gonna use. I already colored it down a bit, so we're just gonna jump straight into it. So I'll go here and type in Dehancer and we'll put it in. And what you're gonna see is you're hit with a bunch of settings that you can tweak. So we're just gonna go through a few that I would use the most and play around with it. I'm also gonna go through and disable each one, but we'll enable them one by one as we go through it so you can see the effect. So in the input section, the source should match whatever your timeline is. So I have mine set for Rec 709. There's a temperature control. You also have tint and defringing settings, which will help with chromatic aberration. So when you first open the film tab, you'll see a download button. And what that's gonna do is download a bunch of these profiles. And the profiles really give the footage a unique look. So if I go through a few of these, you can see how it affects the image. So there's really, a bunch that you can go through and kind of pick whatever look that you're going for. And within each one, you're able to use this slider here to also adjust the way it looks. So super dope. I'm just gonna set this one to Fuji Color Natura 1600. I like the way that one looked. And then maybe we'll slide the slider just a little to the left. I think that looks good. In the expand tab, you'll see a black point and white point slider as well as the color mode. So if I play around with these, you can see how it affects the blacks as well as the whites. But in this case, we'll leave this disabled. In the color head tab, what you're gonna see is yellow, blue, magenta, green, cyan, red, and basically whichever way you pull the slider is gonna add in that tint. So to the left will be yellow, to the right will be blue. Then you have magenta, green, cyan, and red. And if you enable gang, then it'll move all of these at the same time. Pretty dope, but we are gonna leave this disabled. Jumping into film grain is pretty self-explanatory. So here you can add grain to your footage. Now, according to the manual, this plugin is a lot more complex than just overlaying your footage with grain. But there's a bunch of settings here to play around with. So if I enable it, you can immediately see what it does to the image. There's a bunch of settings here, so we're just gonna go through them and play around with it, see how it affects the image. So maybe I'll increase the size a bit, increase the amount. I want the film resolution to be pretty high. Now what's cool with shadows, midtones, and highlights is you can distribute the grain however you want to each of these values. So maybe you want more grain in the shadows, a little less in the midtones, and a little less in the highlights. So you can really decide how the grain is gonna look in your footage. As far as film type, the manual says that negative grain is more pronounced in the highlights, while positive is softer and less pronounced in the highlights, but we'll keep it at negative. It also says for the mode that analog is more of a lifelike simulation, while digital is more simplified. So we'll keep it at analog. Next we have something super cool called halation. So this is gonna add a red or orange halo around light sources. So if I increase the local diffusion and you pay attention to the signs, you'll see the effect. Then I can amplify it a bit, make it stronger, and that looks fire. There's a bunch of settings here to play around with, so just to name a few, Source limiter is going to decide the amount of light required for the effect to take place. Amplify is going to make the effect more pronounced. Hue will change it from more of a red tone to orange or yellow. Impact is going to be your opacity. Halation is definitely one of my favorite effects, and it gives the footage that special look. Next is also one of my favorites, which is bloom. And this is going to bloom your highlights. Again, we have a bunch of settings here that we can go through. So I'm going to drop down and enable it, and you'll immediately see the effect it has on the lights. Again, I'll disable, enable. Diffusion is going to be your glow radius. Amplify is the strength of the effect. The save lights bar is cool because it affects the brightness of the source of the light. And of course, impact is your opacity. The last two tabs I want to quickly talk about is film breadth and gate weave. What film breadth is going to do is create random variations in exposure, tonal contrast, and color. Of course, you can set how much of a variation it makes, but this is something that I think takes it to the next level and really adds to the effect. For gate weave, the way I see it is it kind of makes the camera jitter and adds to that imperfect feeling. Like all the other effects, you can control it and set how much jitter there is. So after the dehancer, I would add some sharpness just to get some of that back, but that's completely up to you. So now I'm going to show you all the result with all the settings I added. That's gonna be it for this one, and to be honest, I really like this plugin, and it's definitely gonna be something I use often on future projects. But look, if you are interested, there will be a link down in the description to purchase. You can either get the full version that I have, or there's also a light version, or you can also just get individual effects. But I got y'all with a little discount, so use my code MILLS for 10% off at checkout. I think it's worth it for the effect that you can get. And like I said, it's something I'm gonna be using often. But if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and drop it a like, jump down in the comments, let me know what y'all think, and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. It only takes a second, and I'm gonna see y'all real soon in my next one. Peace.